once language users developed these tricks or mechanisms, as they had to make language work, not consciously, but they developed them. Once those tricks were there, they turned out to be useful for all sorts of other things as well. So although strictly speaking, there are a lot of things you can do with vocabulary, it may be more convenient for languages to do them through grammar instead. Time is an obvious one. You don't have to do time in the grammar. We did it with vocabulary in that baby language we talked about yesterday and tomorrow without using any grammar. And there are languages that don't put time into the grammar at all. You probably know some. Languages that don't have a tense system, where time is indicated by vocabulary, not by grammar. But it seems to be convenient, and lots of the world's languages have time in the grammar. Number, singular and plural. Not all languages do number in the grammar, but lots of languages do. And so on and so on. And there are other things that we're not familiar with as English speakers that other languages do put into the grammar. If we spoke some American Indian languages or Australian languages, then we would need to select verb forms on the basis of evidentiality. What the hell is evidentiality? Evidentiality is showing how you know something. So in some American Indian languages, if I wanted to say Fred's got flu, Fred's ill, I couldn't just choose a verb form without further thought, because the verb form would depend on how I knew he got flu. Did I see him with flu? Did somebody tell me? Is it common knowledge around the camp? Have I deduced it? And there are languages that will have maybe 3, 4, 5 different degrees, or different forms of evidentiality. So, whereas we sweat blood to get the right verb form for the time relation we're talking about, they don't bother about time at all. They think that's crazy, fussing about time and the verbs, but they have got to get the evidentiality right. Apparently, I've been told that this exists in Turkish too, and maybe some other European languages. So that's one thing. Another thing that, as a lot of you know, there are languages where the grammar has to be very carefully chosen on the basis of your relationship with the person you're talking to. You have different verb forms or different noun forms, different pronouns, depending on the level of respect and other aspects of your relationship. And that apparently is a minefield for foreigners learning Thai or Japanese or Chinese. So one reason why it's complicated is that you've got this tool, grammar, and once it's there, you can do lots and lots of things with it. Another is just to think that complexity breeds complexity. Once you've got a way of putting things together, as we have, we've found mechanisms for putting words together into groups, showing what goes with what, then you can group the groups, and you can group the groups of groups, and so on. And that gets very complicated. So languages do tend to end up very complex. A little bit like computing. Computers at base are very, very simple mechanisms indeed. They work with 2 kinds of signal, 0 and 1, or on and off. And they started out as kind of adding machines. And if you think of the unbelievable, mind-blowing complexity that those zeros and ones have gone into, and the multiplicity of functions that computers have, they've gone a long way away from that. And I think grammar in language has escalated a bit like that. One reason, I think, why languages can be very difficult to learn is because of the way a particular language will go overboard for this or that mechanism. And the one that always strikes me is inflectional systems, word endings, in languages like Russian or Czech or Polish and other Slav languages. where words can have lots and lots and lots of different possible endings, far beyond what you really need. You could drop most of them, and you'd have to keep a few, but you could drop most of them and communicate perfectly well. But it's mind-blowing. Those, I believe, are the ways in which a Russian noun can end. Only, I mean, any one noun only ends in some of those ways, but you've got to know which. And except for 0, all of them can be either stressed or unstressed. Right? Hell. And you find yourself wondering, why do these languages do this sort of thing? Why do they do it to us who want to try to learn them? Nobody's quite sure, really, but there are probably several reasons why grammar gets very complicated in languages. One can be phonetic erosion, that things can start out tidy, and then with phonetic change, as the language goes on, decade after decade, century after century, things change their forms, and they do it rather unsystematically. It's a bit like the junk room in your house, or a drawer we've got in our kitchen where I think we've got 6 corkscrews. We had a corkscrew, and then somebody gave us another corkscrew, but we didn't chuck out the old one. Then we got one out of a Christmas cracker, and then we wanted a better corkscrew, so we bought a new one, but that doesn't work terribly well. We've ended up with 6 corkscrews. Languages are full of things like 6 corkscrews.